With the French Open just a month away, all the top men's tennis players were looking to send a message to each other in the first clay court tournament of the season, the Monte Carlo Masters. The final featured 17-time Grand Slam champion Roger Federer and 2014 Australian Open champion Stan Wawrinka. Wawrinka had not been broken once going into the final, but Federer found an opening at the right time to take an early break advantage. The crowd favorite continued to push Wawrinka around the court, and it seemed like his shots were magnetically attracted to the lines. Federer took the first set 6-4, but his Swiss compatriot responded in the second set tiebreak with an efficient serve and volley. Wawrinka crushed his serve out wide on set point and forced a third set with a massive overhead winner. Wawrinka was a set away from winning his first Monte Carlo title, but did not show nerves as he continued to blast winners past Federer. Federer had won the previous 11 meetings going into the final, but it was Wawrinka who proved to be the better player in the match and closed it out with a monster inside-out forehand. With the Monte Carlo title, Wawrinka now has earned the most points of any player in the world. All right, here to talk about the top 4 tennis players in the world and analyze their performances in Monte Carlo is 23-sports analyst Chris Turner. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm good. It's finally good to talk about a sport. The summer's around the corner. Tennis, the Wimbledon, French Open are around the corner. Pro tennis is finally hitting its mark this year.
Right. My first question for you is about Roger Federer, one of the finalists in that tournament. You think he's going to win any more majors in his career?
I think he will. He's not done yet. I mean, he's 32, yeah, and like you told me before the show, that's an old age for tennis, especially professional tennis. The strain it takes on your body, going back and forth all those years. I don't think he's done yet. I think his performance in Monte Carlo should tell us right now he's still got some juice left in the tank. He came in as a wild card entry, and he did very well. He's definitely a French Open contender, in my opinion. But I think he has the ability, just the way he closes in on the net, he keeps his opponents out of sync. And I think his semifinal match against Djokovic was a perfect example of that. But I definitely think he'll take 1 or 2 more Masters titles.
Right, going off what you said about beating Djokovic, he did a great job against him in this tournament and 2 other tournaments this year. He has a 2-1 record against Djokovic. And let's not forget, 2012 Wimbledon. He was 30 years old already, and he won that title. Came out of nowhere winning that. He had not won a title for 2 years, a Grand Slam title, that is. And I feel like he was a little bit distracted last year. You know, he's having a baby, or his baby is going to be born in a couple months, so they were busy with things back then. And, the fact that he beat Novak Djokovic twice, and he's come close against Nadal this year, he's looking good, and he's looking a lot more focused and confident on the court.
And he's still one of the elite players in the world. When you think of tennis, top 3 names off your head, Roger Federer is going to be one of them.
Right, I mean, he's still number 4 in the world after everything he's been through. All right, let's move on to Stanislas Wawrinka, Chris. What should his ranking be?
Well, I think he's sitting perfect right now at number 3, and he has Nadal ahead of him, and that's the one definitive thing. I think Nadal is a little better than Wawrinka, but I think Wawrinka's performance was fantastic. He had a very impressive outing in the Australian Open and now the Monte Carlo. I think he could keep that momentum going into the French Open, but I don't think he can slip up. If he gets a rematch with Nadal, he's got to go out there and prove that he belongs in the elite conversation with Federer, Djokovic, Nadal. I think a good outing in the French Open and a possible rematch and a victory with Nadal would really cement him among the top 5. But in recent smaller tournaments like the Sony Open and the Davis Cup, it left a little bit of questions. He got ousted in, I think, the 4th round. So I think if he can perform on the big stage in the French Open coming up at Roland Garros, I think we could see him in the elite conversation.
Right, he did look shaky in those 2 tournaments last month. He lost to Kevin Anderson and Sony Eriksson. Who's Kevin Anderson? That's what I'm talking about. And I know this is shocking, but when he's healthy, and he's healthy right now, he was suffering a bit of a back injury during Sony Eriksson a month ago. I'm going to take him as the number 1 player in the world right now. I think he's the best player on the ATP World Tour just because of what I've seen when he's healthy. He won the Australian Open, like you said. He just won the Monte Carlo Masters, his first Masters title of his career. These are things to keep in mind. I mean, he's never done this stuff before, and he's coming into this season with so much confidence, and he can just beat anyone. He's beaten everyone in the top 4. Djokovic, Nadal, Federer. He's taken them all out this year. That's something to keep in mind.
And that's the discussion the way it is now. It's those 4 names. And I think a rematch with Nadal in France here coming up in the month or so, I think will really decide who is the true number 1.
Right. And going on to Novak Djokovic now, he injured his arm in the semifinal against Federer. Do you think this is going to impair his chances going to the French Open?
Well, I think it will. I mean, any injury will impair anyone in any sport. If he's not at 100%, I definitely think speed and how his serves will be affected and his backhand, his forehand, and all that. And Novak Djokovic at 100% is one of the top players in the world. But if he's injured, it leaves a lot of questions. And if he's injured, and if he continues to have this injury, preparation is definitely a question. How will he be able to prepare for the French Open? Will he have enough time if he gets cleared? See, if he's not prepared, I feel like he shouldn't even play. But if he is prepared and he comes in here, then maybe he could get close to the semifinals, but there's still a lot of questions.
Right, like you said, is he going to play going forward in these tournaments prior to the French Open? And believe it or not, I looked it up, and he is going to play in Madrid this upcoming week. I think that's a risky move. He just got this arm injury, and he's going to go into Madrid and try to stay healthy throughout that tournament. That's a potential 5 to 6 matches. And then he's got another tournament after that, Rome, and then the French Open. So he has a lot on his plate. If he's going to play with this injury, I don't know if that's the smartest decision. I wouldn't take the risk. And I think he does still have a chance to win this French Open because we saw last year, 9-7 in the 5th set. He barely lost that match, and he hit the net cord with his racket, and that really cost him early in the 5th set. I think he has the potential to beat Rafael Nadal on clay, which is something that only 16 people, or it's only happened 16 times, it's probably not even 16 people, most of those were multiples. In his career, he's only lost 16 times on clay, though. That's remarkable.
And like you said, he's going to Madrid and Rome. I think these two will really serve as warm-ups for the French Open. Good performances there, and if he's not having any problems, I think he has a good chance to contend.
Right, and moving on to Rafael Nadal now. He's 58-1 at the French Open. Will he win it again?
I think the king of clay is the top pick right now. I mean, he's performed so well, and I think just the way he was ousted at Monte Carlo, that should just light a fire under him. He should be motivated. He should want to go out there and say, hey, I'm the #1 player in the world. You can't beat me on clay. I'm here to prove it. So I think he's going to come out with a lot of motivation. He looked hesitant against David Ferrer. I think he's going to come out there and be more aggressive. And he's been in the top 5 since 2005. He's been a consistent contender, and I think he really has a good shot to win the French Open.
Right, I agree. Against David Ferrer, he only lost 1 time going into Monte Carlo on clay. So that was a shock. I could not believe it when I saw that he lost to David Ferrer, his somewhat rival from Spain, but he's a guy who he's just taken out time after time. So I think Nadal, like you said, will have a fire going. He is going to want to win this French Open, and going forward in the tournaments prior to the French Open, Madrid, Rome, he is going to come out firing because he does not want to be known as the guy who had such a strong performance on clay and just somehow miraculously lost this year to a guy like Ferrer who he shouldn't have lost to. So that's something to keep in mind. I think Rafael Nadal, like you said, will win the French Open. 58-1, 316 on the clay courts. What player in any sport has a record that dominant in anything?
There aren't that many. And like Federer and Nadal, the two. Like we said, Wawrinka may be in that discussion very soon. But Nadal right now is the true #1. And I think how he performs at Barcelona and Madrid, I think will really determine how he performs at Roland Garros.
Exactly. And while these top players prepare for the French Open, this year's crop of NFL free agents will hit the field for off-season workouts. To recap the frenetic free agency moves, I'll send it over to my co-host, Mitchell.